Hi, Darren Dogman here, and I hope you can hear me this time. I think I've worked out how to use my microphone. It's been a long time. So thank you so much for all the questions. I've got quite a few to get through here. I'm going to try and tackle 3 of them at least. So thanks for your input. If you're not wanting to put your kind of hard questions on Facebook because you're a little bit embarrassed maybe, and I get that because some of those behaviours are quite difficult, then what I've done is I've put a little form up on the website that you can put your question in there, and you can just say on that form that you don't want me to say your name or your dog's name, and I'll answer it. You'll know who it's for, but then you won't feel embarrassed if that's the case, okay? Because I kind of get that, because some of the dog problems that we talk about, they're quite embarrassing for us all. Yeah. What I would say is that any problem you have that you're embarrassed about or unsure about, I guarantee there's 20, 30 other people out there that are experiencing exactly the same problem, and that's just in this area, okay? So don't feel too bad about it, but getting some advice is better than not getting some advice at all. So we'll kick off straight away then. I want to go straight to something that somebody posted about, and I've seen this all over Facebook. Should you treat your dog or not? Should you use treats, basically? So I want to kind of dismiss that or dispel that myth kind of straight away, because yes, you should use treats for your dog, but there's a certain way of doing it, and I think that's where people go wrong. So this idea is, are treats good or bad? That kind of question is really irrelevant, because dogs love treats, dogs love food, so of course it's good. Right? It's the way that you actually give a treat and when you give a treat that's really important. So if we take the first instance of, I see lots of people that they have a dog and they hold a treat up and they say sit, and the dog sits, and then they give them the treat. And to anybody that's looking at that behaviour, it looks fantastic. The dog is sitting every time they hold a treat up. But what we've got to understand is that about the value of that treat and who gains that value. Now, we're all trying to build our own value so that our dogs do things for us, okay? And I guess the difference between holding a treat up and then having a treat behind your back and giving the treat at the end of the behaviour, when the behaviour's been done, is this is a bribe, okay? So if I've got a couple of $100,000, I wish, but if I had, okay, and I held it up and I asked you to do something, there's a high chance that you're likely to do it for me, right? Even more so if I did it again and gave you another couple of $100,000, then you'd be rich, I'd be very poor, but I guarantee you would pretty much do everything I asked you to do, because I'm waving this $100,000 in my hand, okay? If I put it behind my back, you'd have to make a gamble, you'd have to make a decision about whether it's worth doing it, and that's all about relationship, isn't it? So if you know that I'm a really nice guy and I do some really good stuff for you, then you're likely to do it again. But if you don't know me, there's no trust, then maybe not. So having it behind your back is about payment, but every time you do step out your box and do it, and then I do pay you, that's going to make it easier for you to do it for me next time, or do something for me next time. Well, that's exactly the same as a dog. First of all, we want to get that payment in straight away, so they may not do the exact behaviour we want, but it might be quite close. But they get the idea that we're paying when they do a behaviour, not bribing. Okay, and then the more we pay them for doing behaviours, the more they're going to offer those behaviours for us. So having a treat out, classic one is that recall, isn't it? So I wave a treat around and try and get the dog back to a recall, and I'm sure I've seen dogs in parks that look to check to see if their owners put their hands in their pouch to get the treat, to see whether they're going to come back again. Okay. The other thing about treats is not all treats are equal. I know well, maybe there's a caveat here if you've got a Labrador, but not all treats are equal. So there's a hierarchy of treats, and what I kind of recommend people do is go and buy 5 or 6, maybe 10 different types of treats, and that might include their kibble as well, okay, and then get one of each and throw them on the floor, video it, okay, and then just watch your dog and see where they go first, which ones they steal first, or which ones they try and eat first, and that will give you a hierarchy. The one they go to straight away, that's the highest value treat. That's going to be the one that you might use in the park, things like that, when they do have a good recall and you pay them for coming back. Yeah, not bribing, obviously. The one that they go to last, that's going to have the lowest value, and it's all about the sniffer, basically. It won't smell as much, and that might be the one you use in your house, because you don't need such a high value treat to overcome anything that's going on outside, okay? Write that down, do it quite regularly, it changes. Yeah, so you might find that their nose changes and their taste changes over time, so do it quite regularly, okay? The other thing is, we feed our dogs carrots. That's their ultimate treat, a carrot. If you want to associate things like carrots, a lot cheaper than treats, believe me. If you want to associate carrots with treats, get a very high value treat, give them that and then give them a carrot, give them that and then give them a carrot. Over a space of time, they'll start to associate the value of the carrot, of the high value treat with the carrot, and then the carrot becomes a high value treat. Can take a bit of a time though, okay, but worth a try. And if you find your dog doesn't take the carrot first of all, won't eat some in front of them, that normally does the trick. And that's not a hierarchical thing, that's just saying this is safe, it's okay, you can eat it too. Yeah. The other thing you can do is you can use one of these snuffle mats. So there's a kind of thing that if we put food in here and the dog has to work really hard to get the food, then that food becomes more valuable. So if we're thinking about the value of food, we can double, triple the value of food by putting it in things like snuffle mats. These are great. We got these from a company in Taronga, the Snuffle Shop. Lovely woman makes them all by hand. But you can really double up the value of your basic kibble. And especially if you've got a puppy, a young dog, using something like this, you can then guarantee that you're feeding the right amount and you're not overfeeding your puppy and making a big sort of fat puppy. Yeah. So treats, yes, very good, but make sure you use it in the right way. Obviously toys work just as well, but sometimes dogs aren't into toys, and treats work just as well as toys. We double up, we give a treat and then we play with a toy. Why not? Fantastic. So that's all going now. Yeah, good stuff. Right, okay, so probably enough on the treats there. So one of the other questions then was that we have a dog that goes in the car, and when they jump in the car they go absolutely crazy, barking at everything that's moving around them, all the dogs, all the different cars going past and the cycles and that kind of stuff. Okay, so that I'm guessing is probably worse for a herding dog. Remember, herding dogs are all about eye movement, and I think the lady that put that has a herding dog, I'm not sure. But that whole concept of a dog being in a car, first of all, if they're just on the seat and they're not strapped in any way, hopefully they're in a harness or something, but even if they're in a harness, they're still not very stable, so the whole world is moving at kind of like back and forward and then fast and fast on either side. Now to a dog, that is just absolutely crazy overwhelming, especially those herders that are like cued into movement anyway. So it literally just sends them absolutely crazy, and they just become more and more overwhelmed really quickly. So if you've got a dog like that, there's only really one way around that, apart from maybe doing some training where they're calming the car. But again, you can't really train against that movement. That's just what they've been bred for. So what you do is you have a crate and you cover it over. But you make sure that that dog has a really positive association with the crate, so you might want to do some crate training before that. Hi Bill. Yeah, do some crate training, feed them in the crate in the car, all those kind of things. You don't want to bring any trauma from a crate into the car, because then that will add to the whole thing. So make sure that creates a positive thing, and cover it over, and then you'll have a quiet life, because it literally is just that movement. If you have a dog that's not strapped in and bouncing around the car, jumping at the windows, please stop that. Get a harness. Any kind of harness is better than nothing. There are some really good ones from Easy Dog. I think they're called Easy Drive. Because if you have I think it's like a 5 kilogram dog moving at 60 k's, when you stop, that dog becomes 200 kilograms and it'll hit you in the back of the head. The dog probably won't survive, but your neck's probably going to feel a bit sore afterwards as well. So make sure that you do strap your dogs in some way. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to be including yourself in that barking. So the last thing you want to do if they are doing the crazy barking is telling them off, because all you're going to be doing is just joining in. Remember, they're so overwhelmed. They're so overwhelmed, they're not really thinking straight anyway. All they're hearing is you being overwhelmed and barking at whatever's out there as well. So you're going to be you're going to be reinforcing that behaviour without realising. Better to do some clicker training in a bit more controlled area when they're quiet, click, all that kind of stuff. Okay. The other thing is we talked, this lady talked about counter conditioning. So she's got a reactive dog, I guess, and obviously when you're in the thick of it, it's quite hard to counter condition aggression or reactivity when you're in the thick of it and you've got loads of things going around. So you do need to find somewhere quite quiet where you can control the environment, because most of counter conditioning is all about the space between what they're scared of and where you are. Okay, so and you need control of that, and you also need control of around you as much as you possibly can, because if I'm counter conditioning a dog here, say to the camera, and my dog's okay at that distance and I can give some treats to counter condition, if suddenly a dog comes in like Billy just did there from the background, then suddenly everything's completely blown. I've thrown my dog into fight and flight, and then I may as well just go home, because that counter condition is not really going to do me any good. Maybe a little bit, but hardly at all, because my dog's just going to be so overwhelmed. So she talks about using her long driveway. I would say it's a fantastic idea because you've got complete control of what's behind you on that sense, and you can always see what's in front of you, so you can counter condition that. Just remember, though, it's all about the distance that you're using, or the distance between you and the fearful thing. The closer you are to something scary, the more scary it becomes, the more your dog becomes unable to deal with that situation. Okay, the further you are away, the better your dog can cope. Obviously, if you're so far away, they don't even notice. So therefore, if they're not noticing, then there's no counter conditioning going on. So they kind of need to be in that sweet spot where they've seen the problem, but they're not so overwhelmed that they can't cope with it and go into fight and flight. Okay, you can do that in your driveway really well. I would say that's probably a really good option. Just make sure you've got your dog secure on the lead, because that's obviously going to be important if they lunge forward and you lose them, because they'll run out into the main road. Okay, hopefully that helps a little bit on that score. On that little note, when we're talking about training and counter conditioning and all that kind of stuff, I would get your camera, like we are now, I'd get your camera, set it up in front of you and video that, because our timing is everything when it comes to counter conditioning or any kind of training really. Our timing is everything, particularly clicker training. And what we want to do is we want to video ourselves for maybe about 2 or 3 minutes tops when we're training, and then watch that video back. Quite often people will train for like 20-30 minutes, and what they'll find is that their training is slightly out, their timing is slightly out, and what they've done is they've actually trained that behaviour wrong for 20 minutes. So the dog has learned for 20 minutes how to do something wrong, and then they've got to unpick all that. Okay, so a couple of minutes, you can normally recover from that if you get it wrong. So watch the video, see if the timing's wrong, see if you're actually training what you think you're training, and then adjust your training. Okay, it's also good for the dog because after 3 minutes their head's probably blown anyway, normally ours are a while, and you can get a tuggy toy out there and you can give them a play, or you can do a scatter feed or something just to take the stress out of any of that training. So yeah, set that up 3 minutes. We normally do about 15 minutes of training. It'll be 3 minutes of training, 2 minutes of play, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, and so on and so on. That's normally our routine, but we probably won't do any more than 15 minutes of intensive training with any kind of dog. If it's emotional trauma type related dogs, so counter conditioning, then you might want to bring that down even less. Remember, the object of the game is to keep your dog unstressed, not overwhelmed. Yeah. That leads me quite nicely, I guess, into one of the other questions, which was to muzzle or not to muzzle, I think was the way it was expressed. and muzzling for me is one of the most important things. You saw Billy there come in, he's muzzle trained because he has to be. He's got a very high prey drive. You wouldn't think so if you've met him. He's a lovely dog, very relaxed, but he's got a very high prey drive when it comes to little fluffy things. So if he's out running in a paddock, then he's muzzled, because if he saw a little white fluffy thing, then he would want to chase them, and that's not a very good look for a canine behaviourist, is it? So we muzzle train all our dogs from the very get-go, because you never know when you're going to need to use a muzzle, and normally, in fact, most cases when you actually realise you need to use a muzzle is when something's gone wrong, or you're going to the vets and it's really important. And if you think about that situation, your dog is completely stressed anyway, or you're very stressed anyway, shall we say, and that's never a good way to introduce something new. So we always introduce muzzling as a puppy. So if you've just got a puppy, if you have just getting a puppy, we've got a puppy preschool starting in Hounds Hangout in New Plymouth in a couple of weeks, so you might want to check the website out there. But if you have got a puppy, one of the things that we do teach is muzzle training from the get-go. And we break it down into very small sort of steps. So muzzle training is actually just about putting your nose in something. That's all it is, isn't it, really? And being comfortable to put your nose. Most dogs have an issue when there's something here. If you were to put your finger here and look down and that's all you could see, that would really upset you. That's why they try and pull it off, because they don't know what it is. It's not part of their body, it's not part of their normal view, so it's something that looks weird. So we need to get them used to that kind of look here. So we have a free video course actually that you can, if you go onto the website and the free tasters, one of the free tasters is a muzzle training course. We go through the whole process, so you can get that muzzle training as if it's a game. But essentially what we're doing is we're allowing our dog to put their nose in something and get a treat. Okay, and then we're progressing that on so that dog can wear a muzzle and not feel that it's stopping them from doing things. In fact, if I put the muzzle down in front of all my dogs, I'm more likely to have the dogs sort of have a bit of a go at each other because they want to get their nose in the muzzle. not quite the idea, but very passionate about getting the nose and the muzzle. So it should be literally just a cut down, nose in, and when you can get the dog who will just put their nose in a cup effectively. We use the old coffee cups from the BP, that kind of thing, right? Or from the Z Garage. They're free. Just wash them out, or ask for a double strength or an extra hot, and then you get a free one. I didn't say that, but they're quite useful because you can always cut the end off then as well, and then that can go inside the muzzle, and then you can give a treat through the cup. But remember, it's just a bridge for the dog to realise that putting his nose in something and the muzzle is okay. The other thing you do from the get-go when you buy a muzzle, we'll talk about what muzzles in a minute, but when you buy a muzzle, put a plastic bag in it so the dog doesn't necessarily see the thing, and then feed them in there so they get used to putting their nose in the muzzle just to get fed. It doesn't have to be the whole dinner, it might just be occasionally. But that just takes away the stress. Put the straps back so the straps aren't there. And that just takes away the stress. We tend to take about 2 to 3 months to train muzzles properly. I think it really takes that long. And if you've had a bad experience, or your dog's had a bad experience with trauma, going to the vets or something like that. Now, I'm not saying that the vets have done anything wrong, but your dog's not in a good headspace anyway, so it wouldn't matter what your vet does. And if they have to restrain them when they put the muzzle on, remember that restraint, that fear, that smell, all that kind of stuff is going to be connected with using that muzzle. So it's never going to be a good thing. So we try and do it in a calm environment, but we take our time about it. Okay, and I would recommend doing that completely. There's a couple of caveats with muzzles now. We use the Baskerville muzzles, the Ultra Baskerville muzzles. There are lots on the market. The reasons I like these, I don't get any sort of like special treatment from Baskerville or Company of Animals, which I did. But what you can do is you can put them in hot water, and then you can mould the shape. And I think that's so important because a lot of the bully dogs that I train, the muzzles don't really fit. And some of the really long snouted dogs, like the greyhounds, they don't kind of fit in the lurchers. So what you can do is you can put it in hot water, and then you can just hold it there for a couple of minutes, and then you can kind of like shape it to what you want. And then when it cools, it keeps that shape. So it's almost a personalised muzzle for your dog. They're not cheapest in the world, but you only ever buy them once, so it's worth spending a bit of money and getting the right one. I also think that a dog should never be wearing a muzzle off lead. So never wearing a muzzle off lead, running with other dogs that aren't muzzled. Now, the reason I say that is if you've got a nervous dog and they're running around and another dog has a go at them, then they can't have a go back. And I think that's actually quite important, that a dog will feel that it can have a go back even if it doesn't, because it's going to get really nervous, and then you might end up making that reactivity, that nervousness, even worse. Okay, so no, don't let your dog run off lead when there are other dogs without muzzles on there. Not fair to the dog. But yeah, train it as a puppy, definitely. I just checked to see if there's anything else that's come through. If anybody's got any questions, throw them in now, quickly. What have I got online here? Okay, someone's just sent something through about puppies and young kids. So we're talking baby kids and puppies. I guess I'll speak for a few minutes on that one. Puppies and dogs don't really go. Sorry, puppies and dogs go together. Puppies and children and puppies and babies really don't go together. Simple as that. Okay. You can't just leave a puppy with a child. You can't just leave a dog with a child. They just don't work. There'll always be tears on both sides, right? So what I'm saying is that we need to manage that situation all the time. And I've got a kind of rule that any kids under 5 don't get to be near a dog without an adult being there. And you can judge whether 6, 7, 8 is really appropriate as well. Because it's so easy for the child to make a mistake and the dog to react, or the dog to make a mistake and the child to react. And unfortunately, the child always gets hurt and the dog always gets rehomed or worse. Okay? So, and once you've lost your trust in your lovely companion to be around your children, I would probably say there's no going back there. So the dog is always sort of rehomed. So we don't ever want that. So, and the only thing that stops that is complete management of the dog around the children. Okay, so if we've got a puppy, we use puppy pens, and then children can have their own time and the puppy can have their own time. And then when the puppy interacts with the child, the only time that puppy's going to do anything silly around the children is when they get so excited. So that's when they get overwhelmed, they get too excited, their excitement goes up and up and up, and then we don't stop it. Okay, if we let that continue around the child, then what's going to happen is the dog's going to jump on the child and start playing with the child like it's a puppy, and probably bite it just because it's got those puppy teeth, right? So we need to step in. We need to be parents when we have puppies, not just for our kids, but also for our puppies, right? We need to step in and say, right, that's enough. Not time out because they haven't been naughty. We're going to get in before that. We're not going to be reactive. We're going to be proactive. We're going to take that puppy away and put it in the pen and give it some chew toys so it can calm down. Then it can come back out again. What we don't want is that puppy to escalate, and then something happens really bad, and then it gets thrown in the pen, and we get that negativity, and also the kids are like, oh, puppy's scary. We want to catch it way before that, put the puppy away, bring it back out, catch it again, bring it back out, and so on and so on. And what we're doing is we're building that amount of time the puppy can cope with children. Okay, normally that doesn't happen because we're not the ones that are watching the situation. Okay, it's just luck. Now you can't do that if your puppy just roams around the house and has free will of the house. You can't do that. You're always going to get that wrong. So that pen and that crate is really important because then there's a place where the puppy can feel safe. The kids never go in the pen and the crate. That's puppy space. Likewise, the puppy never goes in their bedroom because that's their space. Okay, really important on that score. With older dogs, if you've got young children, talking babies, again, we're talking about setting real clear boundaries. That starts before young children come home. You set those boundaries, you find those places and set those boundaries for your dog. Station training is a really good thing for that. And what that means is you give the dog a place to be and you teach them to stay there and only leave when you ask them to. That's a bit the most training misses, that break command, that leaving the place. Okay, we cover that in our Mindful Manners course. If you're interested, we've got another course starting in a couple of weeks, and again in Hounds Hangout in New Plymouth, and we've also got one starting in Stratford at our own venue. So yeah, that stationary training is your golden rule. Now it could be a crate, but it's great if the dog will just sit there and watch and respect that that's a baby and that's not anything to do with him. That type of training can take 3 to 6 months to get really good, that you're confident enough then that your dog's not going to start to try and come in and see the baby when you don't want it to. Okay, so if you're pregnant and you're going to have a baby, this is the time when you start to think about training your dog, not when the baby comes home. Nothing happens then, believe me, right? Nothing. So yeah, dogs and babies don't really work, which means you have to work hard to make it work. It's not the dog will be good, it will just work it out. This is you having to do some real hard work before the babies come in. Okay, puppies even more so because puppies know absolutely nothing. You have to teach them everything anyway. Okay. On the flip side of that is also the children's education. Right? You must teach your children how to interact with their dogs, how to read their dogs. We've got a couple of free resources when you go onto the website of some games that you can play with kids, and also the dangers of hugging dogs and that kind of stuff. Please check those out if you've got a baby or you've got young kids. They're very good. But the last thing you want is a child that doesn't understand the dog, right? So we call it becoming bilingual, so they start to understand the language of a dog, but the ears going back is a sign that they're not comfortable. Even when a dog just looks away from a child, that's a sign that they're just not really sure about what's going on. Because remember, kids have a thing of like going right into the dog's face because it's really fun. It's amazing how good dogs are, but there's always a point when a dog can't cope anymore, and then if the child's face is near the dog, that's the first place that gets bitten. So teach your dogs to understand that body language. When your dog says no in those ways, yawning, lip licking, ears back, head down, looking away, that no means no, and they walk away. You need to be your dog's advocate then, so as a parent you're watching that, modelling it to your kids, and then your kids can then model it to any friends that come round. It's not that hard, quite easy, just need to take that time out to say, I'm going to teach my kids how to read my dog. I reckon probably 80% of instances in the house with kids and dogs can be stopped if we just teach our kids to understand the dog language. Simple as that. Probably the most important thing to do. Definitely. If there are any preschool teachers listening or primary school teachers and they want me to come in and do a little talk, very happy to do that. Done it many times. So yeah, if there's any more questions? I can't see anything. Oh, that's Laura. Just double check that. Okay, let's go to Can't see any more questions, so I'll close it up now. Please listen. There's no questions that I'm not prepared to answer here. If I feel that it's something that's a bit too personal, I'm happy to arrange a phone call, just a free sort of 15-minute chat. You can do that on the website anyway, just to give you some clarity over what's happening and what the best sort of approach to that kind of training is. Anybody that knows me, I'm very happy to give time to people if there's a real problem and then you just need some sort of clarity to what's going on. So yeah, so jump onto the contacts and you can just book out free call. If there's extra training that needs to be done after that, I'll explain the services and stuff, and that's completely your choice whether you want to follow that one up. But just to get that clarity of whether it's a real problem or something that a dog will just get through, which it never is, to be fair. But that can always sometimes help. And I'll be putting up the post about the next one. So we're going to do this every week. So the next live will be next Friday. Post will go there, but you can go onto that website. I'll put that as a pinned post, and then you can just leave your questions on there if you don't want to put it onto the Facebook post. So if there's no more questions, if anybody wants to pop one in quickly, I'm happy to take one. Otherwise, I will close things off. I hope this has been useful. Tell your friends. I'll post it in a couple of groups, and the more we can get in here, the more people can get some information. Right, cool. Cheers then, guys. Thank you.